Peace. This is Brother Hot Tim. I'd like to welcome you to the journey. This is Brother Hot Tim. I'm coming through tonight live from New Harvest. I just got done listening to a spectacular show with Mark Lomax and Brother Dean Hulett. And Dean Hulett plays the bass. And I just got a couple of questions because, you know, on the journey, we always looking into mastery. Dean does several things. We're going to first start with the music. Can you tell us how did you get interested in music and start playing music?
Well, I come from a musical family. My dad played guitar. My mom played saxophone, piano. Although she played those before I was even born, actually, but later found out when I got older. My uncle played music. My sister, actually, it was really my sister because she played violin. And when I was a kid, we went to the same school. Like our school was like kindergarten or pre-K, they called it, all the way to 8th grade. So growing up, I was the youngest. My older brother and my older sister. So my sister, she used to play in the orchestra, play violin, and we have like school assemblies and things like that. And that's the first time I saw like live musicians ever. And I saw her play, you know, that's my sister. She's like 3 years older than me. So, you know, I was, you know, look up to my big sister, and I was like, oh, you know, I want to do that. And I remember seeing her play, and there was some other bands there too. You had like a jazz band there. You had like you had a choir there, and that was really the start of it right there. And I started playing drums when I was in 4th grade. I think I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, something like that. I started school early, so, and then a year after that, I picked up bass. You know, like in school they have those things where they have all the kids try different instruments, things like that. So I wanted to play sax originally because I wanted to be, you know, Kenny G, like everybody else growing up. But they put me on bass, and you know, it was just one of those things where I was natural at it, and I liked it, and you know, I just stuck with it. So
now, let me ask you this: since you said you started in school, do you think that because I'm hearing a lot of cuts in education, how important do you think music is as far as education for young people?
I think music is imperative for education. And, you know, I talk about this with some friends of mine about music and what you hear and things like that, and really, you know, what you hear is so influential on what you think and how you do things. Like, to me, music is not so much as a occupation or a hobby. Really, music is almost like an element to me. Like, you have earth, you have fire, you have wind. You know, music to me is like another element. It's like it's something you really can't not have in the universe. And you know, it's what you hear. You know, when you first come out the womb, one of the first things that you, other than besides the sense of touch, is your sense of hearing. It's like the first thing, you know. And when you go unconscious, or they say when you die, your hearing's the last thing to go. So, you know, I think, you know, for education, for a lot of things, I mean, music is just a way, it's just life, it's just a part of life.
Also, in the womb, you hear the heartbeat, right? A continuous rhythm, right? So you say music is imperative. So in a sense, music is very important to you. So how have you dedicated yourself? Because like when I see you playing the bass up there, I see mastery. That's what makes me want to interview you. And I don't want, because some people get kind of upset when I say mastery, not mad, but just like, no. But a point to where you could close your eyes and know where each one of the strings are and know where the music or what sound is going to make. When you are up there playing, what in the sense is going on? And if you can't give a layperson a description of what's going on as you playing, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, I'm just amazed at how you could just keep the rhythm and keep keep everything going what was the work ethic? What's the work ethic behind it? How long had you had to play? Like, I mean, if you had to sum it up in an amount of time, you know what I'm saying? How long would you say you've been playing?
Well, I've been playing music in general probably since I was about 2 years old. I was one of those kids that learned recorder growing up. But playing bass, I mean, I've been playing bass for about 20 some odd years now, and I mean, as far as work ethic, you mentioned work ethic. Excuse me, I got a little cold. You know. Oh no, I'm cool. I'll wait till the interview's over. So, you practice as a kid, and sometimes it's something you're made to do by your parents or something like that, and other times, when it's fun and it's just fun. I'm really fortunate. My mom really let me have fun with the music. It wasn't like she made me go practice, and she encouraged me by by broadening my spectrum, and really broadening my interest. She would introduce music to me. She would hand me this CD or that CD, or tapes back then. You know what I mean? She didn't stop me. Yeah.
For those young people out there listening, the tape is a little square. It was a little rectangle thing that you sleep, because y'all nowadays don't know what tapes are, so you got to be clear. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so we listen to tapes, and that was them times where you get a tape and you would rewind and play so much that the tape would wear out, and you would start to hear what was on the other side of the tape playing backwards. So, she would let me hear all kinds of stuff. She would play all kinds of music around the house. So, music was fun to me. It wasn't so much of, like, okay, time to do math homework or time to do, social studies. It was just part of my life. So I used to practice all the time. I mean, it was just fun. I'd sit up at night practicing, listen to the radio, playing to my favorite song or whatever. I come home from school, and I'd play some of my sister's music because she was still playing. It wasn't really practice to me. It was just, some cats might go, down to the corner and play some basketball. That's what music was for me. You know what I mean? It wasn't nothing separate. It was just what I do.
So it became part of you, and I'm assuming that it has paid off for you in many different ways. Can you share with us in some of the ways that music has paid off for you?
Well, definitely. One of the biggest ways was self-esteem, and growing up in school, a lot of kids get picked on, and I was a little roly-poly kid growing up, and I used to get picked on, stuff like that. But music was such a big part of my life that I always felt good about myself. I always felt good because the music was always there no matter where I was, whether back in the day, cats used to make beats on the tables, on the lunchroom tables, or I'd be in music class or whatever. So that was a real big thing growing up, was just my self-confidence. Another thing really is I would say health. Health actually, and some people might not think about it, but especially playing bass, double bass, it's a physical instrument. I mean, you can't just get by, sitting on the couch all day and trying to play. You actually have to do certain things in order just to be able to play the instrument, period. Not just practice. I mean, stretching, strength exercises, stuff like that, and creating a routine, and that kind of ethic, that kind of practice transfers over to a lot of parts of life, where you have to create a routine in order to excel at something. Not just doing random things here and there, but like, okay, this is what it takes to get to where I gotta go, and this is just what I gotta do. So that's another huge thing that music really did for me.
How about spiritually? What does music do for you spiritually? I mean, because I hear that I'm hearing all these parts, the physical, the mental, the steam, but spiritually, what does music do for you? Because it look like you are in a spiritual trance when you be up there. Because sometimes you close your eyes and the shit is just dope. You know what I'm saying? You close your eyes and it's like you in a whole nother world. You know what I'm saying? But and this is what's crazy for me far as musicians. It's like y'all be in a whole nother world, but you never really totally leave this world because you always in tune. You know what I'm saying? So what does music do for you spiritually?
Yeah, I guess I was subconsciously not mentioning that in fear of being too obvious. But I mean, definitely. I mean, spiritually. I mean, I'm just trying to find like earthly words to describe it. I mean, there's a lot of people they can get to a point in what they do in their art. Whether it's visual art or whatever, or even driving a car or whatever, where it's no longer the thing that's in your hand. In other words, I got an instrument, I got a bass. It's no longer the bass that's in my hand. It's a whole bigger picture, and when you get to a certain level of whatever you do, and it's no longer about you. It's no longer about the instrument in your hand. It's a whole different thing, and it's some people might call it meditation. Some people might call it this or that. It really it's hard to it's a whole other language in itself, and it really gets you in touch with what's inside you and what's inside of the people. Everybody has that experience where they're with their best friend or with somebody, and they say something at the same time or stuff like that. Those little moments of mind reading. And when you're on the bandstand with cats that are like on one page, and you guys are playing and it's killing or whatever, and there's a conversation going on with no words being spoken, and it's cats speaking with their spirits. You know what I mean? And that translates over into the audience, and it's like playing with Mark. We just got done playing Mark Lomax, William Minifield. These guys are always trying to reach for something, and that's the whole point. It's never just doing the job. It's always trying to reach for something. Like reaching for to put a cliche. Reach for the sky, shoot for the stars, and it really is that. And when you have a group of guys all doing the same thing like that, it's just there's no words for it. I mean, sometimes it just brings you to tears. You be on stage, you just start crying.
So you actually have been on stage and cried before? Wow, that's hot. That's I got to experience some shit like that. That's called Nirvana. Satori. Damn. All right, now this is because I'm gonna ask Mark Lomax this question as well. So I'm gonna ask you because I love music, man. I love jazz, and I'm sitting up here trying to learn how to play a trumpet. Or actually, I got my kids. I got the trumpet around for my kids, and you already know because you one of my Caparista brothers. You know I ain't got no motherfucking rhythm. I can't play the band I can't sing. So it's, but do different musicians hear music differently? You play the bass. You write music. How do you write music for another instrument? I mean, do you hear the instrument or do you hear the notes? Or I'm just trying to get clear on that because I'm trying to help develop that language so that when people have those spiritual experiences, we're able to better communicate them. Because one thing that I know is that when somebody reaches a certain level spiritually, whether it's through a musician, whether it's through an instrument, or whether it's through an art, there's a certain language that they can have. There's a certain conversation that they can have that everybody else can't have. And what I'm trying to do is identify that language and identify the methods for getting to that point so that we could get other people to get to that point so that more people could be having that conversation that you're having on stage. But do you hear the music differently being a bass player? I mean, it's because I know that with the notes, universal musical language. But being a bassist, do you hear the music differently?
Yeah, I would say so. It's almost like I keep making references to like basketball, but if you think about it, okay, you have your 5 different positions on the court. Now, typically, we'll talk about the center. So a bass player is almost like the center, and they call him a center because he's literally in the center most of the time. So he sees things visually from a certain perspective almost the majority of the time. Um, he's very familiar with what the hoop looks like. You know what I mean? He knows he sees a shooting guard from a certain perspective differently than what the power forward would. So a bass player is kind of like that. A lot of people say, a bass player will hear from the bottom up because he plays the bottom, and it starts with that, and he hears his way up to the trumpet or saxophone, whatever. So there is a little bit of there's a difference in how you and how I hear it, but it's not necessarily different. It's just a different perspective. It's like we're all looking at the same object. I'm just on the other side. You know what I mean? But we all see the whole thing. I just see it in a different way. You know what I mean?
Now, you also play capoeira, as I mentioned a couple of seconds ago. How has being good at music, being somebody who has dedicated, a disciple in music, assisted you as far as your martial experience, your capoeira experience?
It's a great deal. I mean, there's a lot of music in capoeira. A lot of rhythm. It's a very rhythmical art. And I used to tell a couple of my teachers this in capoeira that I forget what it's called as a phenomenon. Some people when they see or when they smell something, they see colors, right? I hear sounds when I see people move. So when I be in class, or I see somebody do a move, or cartwheel, we call it AU or whatever, or someone, they throw a kick, I hear a sound. And so the way I learn my movements, the way I learn capoeira is by sound association. So like how hard a move is done or how soft a move is done, how fast it's done, things like that. I associate sounds with it. And so it kind of spills over to the question you asked about how I think about my perspective on music. It's really similar to the capoeira where I actually hear certain things that some people they learn very well by visually or by doing it. Me, I have to, if I don't hear it, it's hard for me to learn. So I it's it sounds kind of strange, but that
Now that's some deep shit. He hear the moves, So now, hopefully, what some of the listeners will pick up from that is to understand their own style of learning. You know that your style of learning is audio. That's a beautiful thing. Now you got me all fucked up because I don't know how I learn. I don't know whether it's by sound. I know I don't hear it because I'm like, because I could barely hear when people talk. But hey, first off, I want to thank you for joining us on the journey. Also, I want to celebrate the fact that, one, you a capoeirista brother and you a lover of capoeira as well as a lover of music. Well, let me ask you this. I know you don't only play jazz, but what music would you suggest for some of the people out there who might be interested in pursuing music like you? Like, for example, for somebody who's been playing music for a long time, let's say in a genre, you could pick whatever genre you want. What would be some of your favorite artists? Who were some of the messengers that motivated you to go to push yourself as far as a musician, if you had to?
That's a good question, man. I started classical. Like I was mentioning with my sister, she got me into music. So I was listening to a lot of classical artists growing up, but before I got into jazz, man, I was listening to heavy, like Jimi Hendrix, listening to, yeah, man, Jimi Hendrix. You know, honestly, I learned how to play electric bass by playing along to Jimi Hendrix records. And honestly, he was a huge influence. Stanley Clarke, definitely huge. I mean, that's my favorite bass player. Shout out to Stanley Clarke. You know, these kind of musicians, and you ask, like, you know, any genre. It's not, you really can't pick a genre. It's the artist, and it's the artists that transcend genres. You know, Jimmy was not a rock musician. He wasn't a blues musician. He wasn't a jazz. He was just a musician, and he played his thing, but it fit in anything. Some people will call him he's a blues guitar player. Well, what about when he was playing all that jazz stuff? Oh, he was a jazz guitar player. Well, what about when he was, you know what I mean? So, I would say, you know, whatever you listen to, you know, listen to something that's not in a box. You know, Most Def. You know, what's his name now? Yasin Bey. You know, not just hip hop, not just R&B. You know, it's people who transcend genres.
That's one of the pieces I'm working on, and maybe that'll be the last question. I said this was the last question. But, I mean, you hit on a very important point, because I was trying to listen to the radio with my son the other day, and I really couldn't stomach it too long. Is it just me, or, I mean, you tell me how you feel about this, because you just mentioned the genre piece. Does it seem like they are always, in some form, in this system, or whatever you want to call it, the mysterious they, is always trying to stigmatize or to put genres on stuff? Like, for example, you listen to a quote-unquote black radio station, but you'll never hear no rock, you won't hear no jazz, you won't hear no country. You know what I'm saying? As a musician, how does that affect you? I mean, because it's like I don't got one station where I could go and I can hear or even be introduced to some shit that I'd be like, I don't even like that shit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, is it just me, or is it, I mean, is it? I don't even know what that.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse and worse. You know, you have a couple, like one in a blue moon here and there that peak out on the radio, but for the most part, it's really, you know, it's really sad. It's definitely boxing in a lot of people. Like you say, you know, so-called black radio station is, it's really just the R&B station, you know. Right.
At the beginning of the interview, when I asked you about music, I asked you about the importance of music class. You said that music is the first thing, sound is the first thing we hear and the last thing we hear. So if the sound that we hear is limited, is our experience is going to be any different? You even said that you hear when you do capoeira. So now, how many people out there that might be audible learners, their whole world is limited to what the fucking radio station is playing?
That's a real good point, man. It really is. You know, it puts people's minds in a box, and like you said, you know, if you're listening to, you know, I don't want to pick any names, I don't know like that, but you know, if you're listening to people talking about the same exact thing all the time, you're gonna start walking that path, and everything you do is gonna relate to that. When you have a wider range of stuff that's coming in your ears, you know, people telling this story, that story, this sound, that sound, it just opens up you. I mean, imagine if you remember when you were in first grade and you had that 8 crayon box. Imagine if you just were just left with that your whole life. You never got to the 16. You never got to the 64. You know what I mean?
We was poor. I never got to the 64 and shit. I had to steal other kids' crayons and shit. Right. You got to steal, right. And you know what? But think about this. Would hip-hop exist if we didn't have access to other music? Because hip-hop ain't just R&B. Hip-hop is about going back and pulling what's hot. So you got cuts that are put on top of music that wouldn't even be categorized as hip-hop. So how is hip-hop going to progress if the only thing we use is the shit we have now? Hip-hop was built on motherfuckers going and stealing shit from the Rolling Stones and going and taking old jazz cuts and just hiding it so nobody knew what it was, right? You know what I'm saying? But, hey, man, this is a good conversation. It's getting late. You sniffling and shit. I'm going to let you go. But if you got any last words, I'm going to give you a chance to say your last words. But it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to run into your ass in a holder when I'm healthy. All right, but here.
Yeah, so I just shout out to everybody. Thank you for listening. This is, a beautiful cast here. My man Hatim doing some beautiful work here. I just wanted to say thank you for having me here for the interview and everything, and getting to voice my 2 cents, 2.5 cents, and again, just get your hands on anything you can. Ask around if you gotta cop this or cop that, or download this or download that. Do what you gotta do, because they're not gonna give it to us. It's honestly it's to the point where we have to take it. It ain't just put out there. We can't just go turn on the radio, listen to Motown, and at the same time, listen to other things. So just whatever you get your hands on, get your ears on, just get a hold of it, and just, appreciate the music. One love.
Peace. We'd like to thank Brother Dean, or Ancora, as he's known in the Capoeira world. So if I come on the radio and I'm talking about that goddamn Ancora kicked me in my mouth, y'all know who I'm talking about. So this is Brother Hatim saying peace, and I will be back on soon because I'm going to interview Mr. Mark Lomax. All right, with that, I say peace.